Hey guys, it's Melanie. Happy Sunday. Welcome back. I hope you're having a fantastic weekend. So I have two candle reviews to share with you all today. They are both from HomeWorx. Up first, we are obviously going to be talking about the Palo Santo pumpkin, and a little bit later on this afternoon, we will be discussing one of the Halloween scents from HomeWorx for this year. So before we get into today's review, I do want to just disclose that this particular candle was sent to me as PR from HomeWorx, so I did not pay for this one. I actually purposely skipped this one when it was originally released because personally, this isn't really like a typical type of fragrance that I gravitate towards. So when I received it in PR, I was actually kind of excited because I do think that sometimes when I have received candles that I didn't think I was necessarily going to enjoy, just based off of, like reading the fragrance notes, sometimes I've been super pleasantly surprised and I've actually really enjoyed some of these scents. And I do have to admit that the Palo Santo pumpkin is definitely a lot more enjoyable than I originally thought it would be. And it's not that there's nothing wrong with the fragrance itself. It's actually quite a lovely blend, and I think a lot of people are really enjoying this particular fragrance. I'm just not someone who really gravitates towards Palo Santo or other kind of incensey type fragrances. If you are familiar with my channel at all, you know that I typically tend to go for the gourmands or the fruity scents. And during the holidays, obviously, I love me a good tree scented candle. However, fragrances like this really aren't something that typically draw me in. So I'm always grateful to be able to review these fragrances because when I am purchasing candles with my own money, obviously, like most of you guys, I am choosing to invest in the things that I know that I will typically enjoy, right? All right, so let's go ahead and get into Palo Santo pumpkin. For those that are not familiar with Palo Santo as a fragrance note, this particular fragrance note comes across as pretty subtle. It is said to be a woody fragrance that has some hints of both citrus as well as mint. And for a lot of people, they also detect some almost licorice type notes in Palo Santo as well. I'm one of those people that picks up that like touch of licorice. Thankfully, I don't pick up the mint. However, I do get a little bit of that citrus that is sometimes detectable with Palo Santo, and that is evident in here. But it's not like a citrus scent at all. Like you're not going to open this and suddenly smell, like oranges or lemons or limes or anything like that. It's just a very subtle, like almost super, super light, I would say almost orange type note that I pick up. But I almost smell a little bit more licorice than anything else. So if you're not familiar with Palo Santo, that is typically what that fragrance note kind of comes off as. Let's go ahead and talk about the fragrance notes of the Palo Santo pumpkin. By the way, this is currently available at Homeworx.Shop, and this particular weekend you can use my ambassador discount code. I will put the information for that in the description box down below. That will save you an extra 10% off of your order of $40 or more. Or this is one of those, also again, rare weekends where you can utilize your HomeWorx rewards as well. So whatever saves you the most money, use that and save a little bit more money on these candles. I think this was potentially also available at QVC. Don't quote me on that. I will link it wherever it's available in the description box down below. But let's go ahead and get into the fragrance notes. Okay. So this one here says, the fragrance notes are Palo Santo, pumpkin puree, cinnamon stick, and suede wood. So HomeWorx says, Palo Santo, which has been used for generations as a spiritual incense, is combined with the richness of pumpkin puree, and freshly grated cinnamon stick with suede wood to create a truly unique fall experience. All right, so let's talk about this fragrance. First of all, I get nothing even remotely related to a pumpkin from this scent at all. Really, most of what I get here is that Palo Santo, which again is coming across with that nice, like subtle, lighter woodiness with the touch of that like little bit of citrus and licorice. The cinnamon stick is definitely the second most predominant note. And then that suede wood is kind of interesting because it comes across as almost like freshly chopped wood, but almost like it's wrapped in leather. You know, that like rich, almost like mahogany leather type smell. Like that's what that suede wood is coming across as to me. And I actually really quite like it. This is not the type of scent that I would, you know, go completely gaga over, but I have to admit, I have enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I would. One thing that is a little bit disappointing, however, with this one is that it seems to have fluctuated quite a bit in terms of strength and throw throughout the course of burning this particular one. It started out kind of light and then it picked up. So at first I would put the strength and throw of this at around like a 5 out of 10. At some points it went all the way up to like a 7, and then it will go back down to maybe like a 5.5, 6. It just was a little bit of a roller coaster, which is interesting because typically with Homeworx candles, some of them are just really light and they typically just stay light throughout the course of their life. Or they are quite potent and strong and they are just kind of consistently strong from start to finish. It's rare for me to have one that went up and down the way this one did. So I'm not sure what happened there. But in terms of like, I would say an average strength and throw, if I had to average it out, I would put it at around like a 6 out of 10. So definitely a solid medium throw. Certainly filled the room that it was in, but really didn't do much in the way of traveling outside of that space. That's okay for me with this particular scent, but if you are wanting this one to give you a lot of like strength or oomph, I'm not sure that I could recommend it for that necessarily, unless you are willing to pair it up with a second one. I think if you had 2 of them, you could definitely create a more house-filling experience. Another thing that I found was probably best for this one was putting it in a hurricane. I did not do that consistently. I did put it in my Chester Hurricane a couple of times, and I certainly smelled it a little bit better when I, you know, put it into the Hurricane on those occasions. But it still had some, you know, inconsistencies throughout the life of the candle. In terms of just the burn quality overall, I don't have any complaints about this candle getting sooty. I don't have any complaints about the wicks failing. They're all still intact. I will give you an overview of the candle right before we finish up here so that you can see it. There is a little bit of wax that is remaining on one side of the candle that for whatever reason is not really melting down, but it's just like a very thin layer. But yeah, no wicks keeled over. It didn't get those really tall mushroom tops. It was kind of a good burn in that respect. It's just the fluctuation of the strength and throw that I think were a little disappointing for me. But the fragrance itself, I was pleasantly surprised. You know, if you typically like Palo Santo fragrances, I think you'll get a kick out of this one. I will say, I wish the pumpkin was detectable in here, but I do think that that cinnamon stick is what is giving this that kind of fall type vibe. Cinnamon is obviously a very popular fragrance note for fall fragrances. It just kind of works well, obviously, this time of year. But as far as pumpkin goes, I didn't pick up anything in the way of pumpkin. But if you like Palo Santo, if you like the idea of kind of that like leathery suede wood type note, If you like that touch of cinnamon, it is not red hot cinnamon, by the way. It is truly like a cinnamon stick. Then I think this one is going to be to your liking. If you picked up Palo Santo Pumpkin, will you let us know your thoughts in the comments down below? I am always curious about your guys' take on these fragrances as well. A big thanks to Homeworx for sending this one out for consideration. Like I said, I would have never purchased it otherwise, but I'm really glad I got to try it, and I can see why a lot of you are enjoying this one. So really quickly, let's take an overhead look so that you can see the top view of this candle. And right there, you can see just that little bit of wax sticking around on the side. That's what I was talking about. So it's a pretty thin layer, but typically that does not happen. So you can see the wax is still the original color. There's a few like wick droppings down there, but for the most part, this wax is really clean and it's burning perfectly. So no complaints on the burn at all. Again, let me know your thoughts down below. Give this video a thumbs up if you found it helpful, and subscribe if you're new, and stay tuned for the next review, which will be up in a few hours. All right, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Toodaloo.